Hey everybody, it's me. For my presentation in telecommunications, I'll be talking about artificial intelligence as a tool for filmmaking or a replacement for human creativity. What happens when people who could never afford Hollywood finally gain the tools to visualize their own films? I don't think that artificial intelligence is going to replace filmmaking, but I do think that it is going to change the game in terms of who can afford to create something and who gets paid for that creative work and what audiences are going to consider real or authentic. This is why I don't think that this topic is as simple as saying AI is either good or bad. For filmmakers, especially independent filmmakers, I think it can make previously ideas that were unaffordable actually possible. But at the same time, it can also be used by companies to replace people who already performed that kind of creative work. So throughout this presentation, I want to look at how filmmaking technology that's been developed in the past and how these digital effects and AI are being used today, and where this could take filmmaking in the future. So, artificial intelligence is only the latest technological change in filmmaking. And unless they're actually developing robots to hold boom mics, I think we're going to be okay. Anyway, before AI, filmmakers already use practical makeup, along with miniatures, animatronics, computer generated imagery, and combinations of all those techniques. Such examples like Jurassic Park use full-size animatronic dinosaurs for close interactions with actors. CGI was then used when dinosaurs needed to run or move in ways that a large physical machine could not. One of my favorite movies growing up was Terminator 2, which used the combination of CGI and prosthetics and stunt work along with models and practical effects to create this horrifying T-1000. I think these examples show that practical effects are not automatically better than CGI, and CGI is not automatically better than practical effects. One is not better than the other. A tool does not create quality by itself. I believe that quality comes from judgment and planning and performance and just knowing what kind of technique is appropriate for each scene. I think that digital effects can't always be categorized as simply good or bad. The larger question is just how well they're actually used or how they're executed. In Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs actually feel believable because the filmmakers used the combination of practical effects and digital work, along with good lighting and rain and clever camera movement and sound, in a way that all supports the atmosphere of the scenes. However, in such cases like The Mummy Returns, we have the Scorpion King who looks like he escaped from a frickin' video game and somehow wandered into a movie. The CGI just looks artificial and just a little off from the actors and just environmentally around it. Another strong example is the modern Planet of the Apes films. Actors such as Andy Serkis use performance capture to provide facial expressions, physical movement, and emotion. That human performance then becomes the foundation of a completed digital character. Serkis used similar methods while playing characters such as Gollum and King Kong. And then we have frickin' cats, which frankly, I think I'd been doing pretty well forgetting this movie existed until I needed a bad example for this presentation. I mean, just look at it. Like the combination of like human faces and on the cat bodies just creates something that just feels really unnatural. The same idea applies to AI. The question is not simply whether something is just digital. The question is whether that technology is actually used thoughtfully or cleverly or even ethically. The tool is not the artist, okay? It still takes human judgment to decide whether the result actually works. Alright, so this is going to hit a little closer to home because growing up, I loved the Fast and the Furious movies, especially the first one, and I actually got the chance to meet Paul Walker and get his autograph when I was 13 years old. Digital effects can now do more than create imaginary creatures or environments. They can recreate a human performer. After Paul Walker died during the production of Furious 7, the filmmakers used a combination of existing footage and digital facial reconstruction and performances from his brothers and other stand-ins to complete his remaining scenes. This matters because this kind of technology was used for a specific and limited purpose. It helped complete Walker's final performance rather than replacing him with an entirely different actor and pretending nothing had happened. However, as AI makes this kind of recreation faster and more accessible, it creates some serious ethical questions. Who controls an actor's face? Who controls his voice, his likeness, and his digital performance? Was meaningful permission given? Will the actor or their family receive credit and compensation for it? Can that digital replica be used only once, or can a studio continue using it indefinitely? A similar question existed with CGI and prosthetics, even body doubles and digital effects before generative AI became the new thing. AI simply just makes this process easier and potentially much more widespread. My point in this is that the software does not determine whether that result is respectful or just exploitative. People make that decision either through consent, purpose, credit, and compensation. While researching this topic, I came across the term kinetic filmmaking while reading about one of my favorite directors, Danny Boyle, and his thoughts on technology and AI. So, kinetic filmmaking uses certain camera movements along with editing, music, and unusual perspectives with the visual rhythm that alters imagery to place this audience inside a character's emotional experience. Once I understood that term, I realized that it describes many of my own instincts as a filmmaker. These clips come from my own filmmaking experiments. I often use overhead angles or match cuts using my drone, along with movement and certain landscapes along with music and altered imagery to show what a character is experiencing internally. One of these projects was something I hope to submit to a film festival actually in the fall of 2025. And at that time, as I was experimenting with what was technically possible, I was also dealing with changing rules and just the uncertainty surrounding generative AI. I understand why professors and judges and fellow filmmakers may be concerned about this kind of work that relies entirely on AI without cameras or locations and actors, or just like an actual production set or an actual production process. If somebody simply types a prompt and presents this result as a complete film, then yeah, it feels a little too easy. It feels disconnected from filmmaking as a collaborative effort. My approach to this is different though. I try to use whatever filmmaking tools I have available. My editing skills, my camera work, my phone, my drone, locations I know of, performances from me or people who want to help me, and just my creative vision. AI becomes one part of that process rather than the entire process. For example, I wanted to create a match cut inspired by dreams, in which I would fall asleep in one place and suddenly wake up somewhere completely different. In the first sequence, I'm sleeping on my couch. The image then cuts the same physical position of me on my couch to a beach. My body remains in the same position, but the location changes to express what is happening emotionally. In the second sequence, the character continues running across two different visual environments. The original footage contains the human performance, my movement, and my camera work. The digital tools help me experiment with weather, atmosphere, and just an altered version of that reality. For an independent filmmaker, AI can function like a sketchbook. It can help test an effect or communicate an idea and determine whether a concept works before spending large amounts of money that you probably don't have on a full production. But there is still a major difference between generating an impressive image and creating something meaningful. The filmmaker has to decide why the character is moving, why the environment changes, and how the images connect, and what the audience is supposed to feel. I believe that AI could make filmmaking more accessible and allow up-and-coming filmmakers to create concepts that previously seemed impossible. However, it could also reduce jobs in that creative field. I mean, it can imitate artists without permission or produce movies that look polished, yeah, but feel emotionally empty. I don't believe that AI will completely replace everybody, actors, crews, filmmakers. I think it will change their jobs and force that industry to establish stronger rules and just adapt to ownership and consent and credit and compensation. For independent filmmakers, AI can make imagination more affordable, but the future should not be humans against machines. It should be people deciding when technology strengthens a story and when it begins replacing the experiences that make stories worth telling. AI can expand what a filmmaker can show, yes, but it cannot decide why the image matters.